Hello, everybody. This is David Drapkin at Psychedelics today for another edition of our Vital Psychedelic podcast. Today, we've got the pleasure of talking to Kabir Ali, Chief of Staff and Head of Operations at Nue Life Health. Lovely to see you today. How are you, Kabir?
So happy to be here on this call with you, David. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming, so I'm also delighted that we've got a chance to talk as we usually do, but this time other people will be hearing what we're talking about. So
That's right. I definitely wanted to take a moment and just basically appreciate all of the work that your team does over at Psychedelics today. Kyle, Joe, yourself, just been a big fan for about 2 years now, I think, give or take a couple of months. But just love everything that you guys produce and really appreciate all of the education and value, you add to this space. Very important work.
yeah, appreciate that. Thanks, Kabir. Yeah, I'm a big fan of what we're doing, and since I met your team in Florida for the Wonderland conference, it was great just to get to see people in person. And you and me didn't manage to meet because I think it was just too much craziness happening. But I'm sure it'll happen one day. But today we're going to really get to know you in depth, and I'd love to hear some more about your life and the journey that's taken you to New Life and your experience with psychedelics. So, just to start us off, can you tell us a bit about who you are and what your experiences have been around the intersection of mental health, addiction, and psychedelics? Just as an intro.
Most certainly, my relationship with just psychedelics in a therapeutic container began about 3.5 years ago. I remember the date very fondly, very clearly, December the 23rd of 2018. And that's when I had my first ketamine experience treatment for my addiction, for my depression, something that I struggled with for about 10 years or so. And I guess you can say overnight, I became an advocate. I became a cheerleader. We have a joke in our organization where some of my colleagues call me the chief cheerleader officer, which is through and through, that experience for me really gave me the clarity that I needed to understand the depth of my addiction and the harm that I was not only doing to myself, but to those around me as well. And with the support from the clinicians that I was working with, I had the pleasure of being introduced to this therapy by my cousin-in-law, Dr. Hassan, who's our chief medical officer over here at New Life. And he was very adamant on me exploring this modality, because prior to that, knowing that I had an issue, knowing that I needed to do something about it, wanting to do something about it, I attended support groups, conventional talk therapy, and just explored many other options, conventional and just traditional antidepressants as well. That didn't work out very well. But through and through, the overall experience, that journey that he took me on, was very powerful. And I think it's safe to say that it gave me my life back.
Hmm. It gave you your life back. So, what was your life like before then? If you're okay, just to as much as you feel comfortable, if you could paint a picture.
Yeah, no, definitely. I've definitely come to terms with that season in my life. My life looked like very, I'd say that I was just unable to process, some past trauma, with family members being incarcerated, events that took place around 12 years ago. Um, and, um, and for me, that really just led, losing family led to seeking community. One of the key pillars of, us leading happy and healthy lives, community. And with community, and there's some communities out there that, of course, partake in drugs, and often you hear or you watch in films how easy it is for young people to just fall into the wrong crowd and you know pick up some bad habits. And that's exactly what my life, was prior to that. Doing cocaine between, between Thursday and Monday morning, and heading back into work fully functional. And that was pretty standard. I remember one year, my wife and I were just doing some math, and I had spent more than $42,000 on cocaine. And giving me my life back gave me the opportunity to basically just to jump forward over here, have healthier relationships, have a little bit more of a clearer sense of, you know, uh, self self value, or just basically contributing to, yeah, I don't know what I'm trying to say over here, but just when I think about getting my life back and the contrast between that party lifestyle, nonstop, go, 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 a functioning cocaine addict, masking or escaping the things that, I had yet to resolve, the work that I had yet to do. And in contrast, moving forward and basically transitioning, or getting, I guess you can say in some ways, awakened, to realize that I had a lot of work to do, and the road was long and still is long. And that for me, I think, was one of the honesty and authenticity that these medicines, provide us, that serve as catalysts, is just so profound. And I'm sure I'm not the first person to say that it's hard to put or describe into words.
Yeah, thank you. That's beautiful. It is hard to put into words, and there's something that you were saying about the season of your life and getting your life back, and at the same time that there's still a lot of work to do, and those are all true. And thinking about life as this flow from birth to death, and with addiction, it often kind of almost pushes pause for a lot of people's lives that I've seen when I've worked in addiction. So when I've worked with people that are in recovery or trying to get into recovery, we've looked at that question of, are you trying to get your life back to how it was before addiction came into your life? Are you trying to create a whole new life? And it's a very interesting question to think about. What is it we're trying to do and to be? And in a sense, it's just not to press pause and to press play, and then to kind of live. And then whatever arises in that life, that's what needs to be dealt with. That's to feel those feelings, to remember those memories, to think those thoughts, and to work through whatever comes up in without needing to press pause again, or find other ways of pressing pause. So I just want to ask you, Kabir, do you have a sense of the seasons of your life, and could you tell us a bit more about yourself, just personally speaking, like, because I know you've got a bit of jet setting and living in different parts of the world.
Oh, most certainly. Yeah, no, I live in West Africa with my family, close to my family, in a country called Ghana, in a city called Accra. And it's just gorgeous, very pleasant over there, very stable environment, and just the pace of life, in contrast to our North American lifestyle, you can say is a far more, slower paced. And I have this amazing opportunity to basically, travel back and forth between the two continents, and spending time with our team over here at Nue Life. And my role as chief of staff, and head of operations, I think one of the best parts of the work that I get to go ahead and do is not only see how our clients heal and grow, but to witness the team's growth. That for me is probably one of the most fulfilling parts of the work that we do over here. So it's not just the support that we're providing our clients, but it's also so much so the growth that we're seeing within our team. But when it comes down to my personal story, born in Bombay, raised in Toronto, Canada, typical immigrant story, with family coming down when I was just one. I was just a baby, and they definitely paid their dues. And by the time I was a teenager, I was able to travel back to the homeland, to India, and during the summers, I would really get a sense of where my family is from, and understanding our culture. And today, when I fast forward 35 years, and we reflect on all of that, there's certainly a lot of gratitude, for uh, the time that we're living in at this time, and the space that we're living in, residing over here in Toronto, or whenever I'm with collaborating with the team in Miami. often I'll stumble by conversations that are like, I cannot believe that we're able to do, this kind of work. And that's something that I'll always have, immense gratitude um, for and towards.
Yeah, these are great times we're living in. There's a lot of potential, and at the same time, it's important not to get carried away and think that these are miracle cures and that the world's going to be saved. And as I sometimes slip into that, era of thinking that psychedelics could be this, golden bullet, this panacea for the world's ills. But at the same time, yeah, the world's not in a great place in many respects. So, do you know of anything happening over in Ghana? Like, is there a psychedelic scene there? Is the government open to it being legalized, or what are drug laws like over there?
At this time, there is not a single clinic or clinician practicing ketamine therapy or psychedelic therapy in any way or form. There are some things that, I have been able to discover, which I'm very excited about. So hopefully, we'll be able to share more in the future. But David, I did want to go ahead and circle back to just briefly my story and just tie a
Mm,
knot on that
mm,
over there. One thing that I always discovered as I got older is the lack of education, in certain parts of the world, specifically India, in Ghana, when it comes to all things mental health, when it comes down to just approaching the conversation of depression, or just having the transparency within our society. So there's still a long way to go in certain parts of the world, and that's something that I very much look forward to being involved in some capacity or the other, with respect to initiatives, creating awareness, not just around psychedelics, but around mental health in general. Certain terminology when I share, in Ghana, or whenever I'm traveling, some folks do not even understand the term, even clinicians. TRD. Like, what does that mean? It's just not something that comes up for them. So it's interesting. Yeah, no, we definitely, um, yeah, don't know where I was going with that, but
yeah, no, thank you. And you mentioned it already about having those conversations that a few years ago we couldn't have, and some of that is because of legal changes. So some of that is policy, but some of that is consciousness levels. Like, we need to be more open and honest and authentic about mental health, about treatment-resistant depression and addiction and trauma, and that we need community to support us, because it gets really messy and ugly when we hide so much inside, and it's just the pain when the trauma and pain congeals, and it becomes such a difficult thing to break open, and I think just that concept of breaking open, I think that's in a sense what psychedelics can do. Like, they can break through that shell. Like, a lot of people that experience mental health and addiction, for a number of years, it just gets embedded. Like, there's a shell. It's hard to break through that crust. So, in your experience, what did you have a breakthrough moment? Do you feel like there was like an aha, or was it kind of more like a slow burn? And I know you mentioned your first ketamine experience, a few years back. Was that the moment, or was it kind of pre or post that? Would you say?
no, yeah, no, I definitely say that it was post that, David. I think a couple of experiences in, after fully understanding how to utilize the medication and learning and discovering, its utility, and um, having my first. So I think I had about 3 sessions that were not assisted, meaning, of course, that had no clinician present in the room and with me, guiding me through my session. I believe it was my fourth session, where I had the pleasure of working with a clinician that really just allowed me to navigate the source. Um, of my addiction, and uncover that little layer of why is it that I'm gravitating towards certain spaces, and hanging on to old habits. What is it that I was hanging on to? So Dr. Caroline Epitaki from the Love Discovery Institute, a very renowned name in the space of psychedelic therapy, does a lot of relationship work, but in my session with her, I was really able to understand, like I mentioned earlier, um, that I was hanging on to the loss of my family through my addiction, and I was using that as a coping mechanism, as a coping tool. And for me, I think that was a liberating breakthrough moment, but it was also the start of a very exhausting, full transparency, road to healing, I guess you can say. So I've been very fortunate to have the pleasure of working with clinicians like Dr. Pataki and Dr. Hassan, and when I reflect, or whenever anybody asks me that question around a breakthrough moment, clear as it's clear as day. It's yeah, it's clear as day for me.
Awesome. And I love that you're saying that that was the beginning, and then it was exhausting after that, because then, yeah, you let go of that thing that wasn't serving you, and then yeah, a lot opened up there to figure out.
Absolutely, yeah. I know the work in between. Often, if I were to give anyone any pro tips on basically embarking on this journey of self discovery and this journey of healing and growth, I just always like to be completely share the disclaimer that it goes beyond just a couple of weeks. It's not just it's some sort of a crash course or some sort of a workshop, a brief workshop. This is like going to university. This is like going straight back to high school. So yeah, no, it's but what the medicine definitely has done for me is it's definitely given me the strength, the courage, the clarity, and above all, the patience to accept that it is certainly a process. It's certainly a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I love how open you're being, Kabir. It's awesome.
No.
All right, so where to next? I'm thinking maybe we can zoom out a little bit, more broadly looking at what is addiction. Like, what do we see happening in our communities, in the world? What's going on for the average person that experiences addictive relationships? So, what is a drug? I like to think that, and it could be coffee. So, I am now on day one of not having coffee, Kabir,
Oh
or
wow.
tea. Yeah, so I've taken 4 headache tablets today because I was just couldn't function without it, and so I'm literally detoxing. And every year at Yom Kippur, when I fast, I have a 3 day detox from caffeine. Otherwise, I just can't function. So for me, yeah, a drug that I'm still working with, that I have an addictive relationship with, caffeine. Like, it makes me more confident. It makes me have more energy. It gets me to the end of the day so I can then crash. Yep. Cheers to that. So, just looking at what things are we addicted to in society right now? What are some of the things that we don't really think about? Is that serving me? Am I in control of this? Do I need this so much or so often?
Yeah, no, one thing, it was very interesting, and I believe it's okay for me to share. I came to know of a story where I was, where a client was basically working on their addiction with their relationship with technology. They had a technology addiction, and that for me was just such an eye opener, because we've had folks who have in our program over here, in our participating in our programs at New Life Health. We've had folks who've struggled with porn addiction. Again, like I said, a tech addiction. Of course, their relationship, with food. I understand that that's, of course, a sensitive subject amongst many. For perhaps some of your viewers. So I won't spend too much time, on that. But otherwise, they're we're certainly living in a space today where our environment certainly is pushing us to escape. It's not really a very safe, it doesn't necessarily feel safe. There's a lack of certainty, in our social landscape over here today. And whenever I come by someone who is struggling, with addiction, whether if it's someone that I am, mentoring, or just personally just coaching, um, it, it's quite apparent that we cannot underestimate the value or the impact of our environment. So yeah, no, I definitely feel for all of those who are struggling, and I certainly hope that with modalities like these, and thanks to platforms like yours, that folks are aware that psychedelics can certainly be a very powerful tool for those who are struggling with addiction.
Mm. Yeah. So last year, over 100,000 Americans died of overdoses, and millions of Americans, I think, have addictions maybe without even knowing it, or these unhealthy relationships. I often think of addiction as a relationship. So we all have a relationship with our phone, with food, with money, with exercise, with, it might be alcohol. What kind of relationship is it? And I think when you look at a meta level of our relationship with community, with society, with ourself and family, you can see those relationships are starting to fray at the edges, or a lot of those relationships don't exist anymore. So just look at our community, society. There's a lot of, fighting, a lot of kind of animosity, a lot of division amongst, national society and international society. So this concept of relationship, and with psychedelics, there's also this often a feeling of oneness, kind of unitary consciousness, of this kind of merging with the universe, with other people, with nature, with life itself. And for the conversation of addiction, I wonder how that affects our relationship to ourselves. Having these kinds of experiences that can be very healing, and have, I think, quite a lot of forgiving feeling in them. Like, they can be really deeply forgiving, because I think a lot of people that have gone through addiction, there's often a shame and blame and pain there. So that forgiving and that accepting, that just loving of oneself. So acceptance and commitment therapy, I think is great for addiction treatment and for psychedelics, and also in the field of internal family systems, that we have these parts of us that may carry more shame and blame. And so we need to nurture those relationships between the parts and have that acceptance of what has gone before, and to look at ourselves in different ways. So with that being said, can you share any other kind of wisdoms and lessons from the trenches of your work at Nue Life? What are some of the other experiences that people often talk about when they're having at-home ketamine therapy, about relationship to self, relationship to life itself?
You touched on something earlier on, just briefly. I wanted to just stay with that,
Mm,
and that self compassion, that self love,
mm,
and that's it's one of the most, I think, sometimes even overlooked gifts of these treatments, of these modalities that we are now having more and more access to. Um, that's something that I think we see a lot over here on a daily basis, where clients, as they progress throughout our program, our clinicians have several touch points, and they also check in, and there's an open line of communication when they're participating. But what's really exciting about that is that as they're progressing throughout their series of, let's say, 6 treatments, you really see a lot of growth, even in the way they just simply write. The compassion, the self-respect, is quite apparent from the typical you're the hero of your own movie, and it's just seeing these heroes
mm,
transform, and our clinicians are just are certainly, I'm just going to say, magical people. I mean, they're really something else. Given the fact that they've had to, I think, evolve and embrace this whole entire telemedicine model, this landscape, um, versus meeting in person, reading the room. They now have to do that virtually, digitally. So that, I just want to take a brief moment over there, take a left turn, but I definitely wanted to celebrate them, because they really support our clients throughout their journeys. And some clients, in all honesty, they do not find, the relief that they are looking for. We do have non-responders who participate in our program, but for the most part, um, I'd say anywhere between 85% plus of our clients do respond, to the medication and to the treatment experience. And and with that being said, considering we are touching on this topic over here, David, it's important that I do share that at home oral ketamine therapy is not for everyone. You know, so I think, as a New Life is doing, as many other organizations in this space, are doing quite responsibly, is being very mindful of the clients that they invite into this program. So yeah, no,
There was one beautiful idea that you mentioned there, that we're the hero in our own movie, and
yeah,
it made me think a little bit about internal family systems and the parts of us, but also narrative therapy, the roles that we play, the hats that we wear. And yeah, I think I can relate to feeling like the villain in my life at times, or the imposter in my life, and I sense that quite a lot of the healing that happens with psychedelics is looking at the different roles that we play, and getting a sense of how do I just de-roll a little bit, and who am I when I'm not trying too hard
right.
to be somebody, like who am I when I'm just me, and when I can put all of that thinking down to one side.
Oh no, you again. Thank you for that. I never knew. I never doubted you, David, but I never knew you were so good at this. This is amazing. Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to the David Drapkin show. But I definitely, um, um, yeah, no, I definitely feel like, we are able to be the biggest gift again, is that self compassion, that self care, that self love, but the authenticity and the freedom that comes through these discoveries, or through these, experiences that we share with psychedelics. I think that is that's one thing that I think, we at times look over, which is, what is it that you are actually walking away with when you embark on a journey, with plant medicines, or just or with or with ketamine. And that's just really the authenticity that you just touched upon right now. And that is that liberating feeling where we can actually go ahead and pursue, and live the lives that, we once had, or perhaps, lead a life that, we never knew that we could lead. And that comes back to the hero story. But yeah, no, I think that has certainly been, that in itself opens up so many doors, right? Because now you know what you want to go ahead and do professionally. Now you know how to go ahead and communicate, with yourself and your relationships. You know how to say things like no, or so that, that clarity is something that, um, it's powerful, very powerful. I often tell folks who are, it's not exactly familiar or versed with psychedelics, that we're all like hikers walking through this forest called life. I think we've all heard this analogy. And sometimes this forest gets really foggy or mucky, or sometimes you see some monsters. And what ends up happening with, with these tools, with these medicines, with ketamine, with traditional psychedelics like psilocybin, is that we have this bird's eye view, of our consciousness, and it clears that fog, that muck, and it gives us, a clear path in some ways, for us to understand where it is that we want to go, and what it is that we want to do, and how we want to show up along the way.
Yeah, and that is a beautiful feeling, and in a sense, is that kind of bittersweetness that it doesn't last. And so that's part of the psychedelic experiences. In real life, we can have those peak moments, and that is there. That's always within us, and we can use breath work for that. We
Right.
can climb a literal mountain and stand on the top and scream out, "I am," and have that same feeling. But maybe just to ask that question, because we've spoken before about ketamine having an addictive potential, like MDMA as well. It has an addictive potential, and when I tell people, that aren't in the psychedelic world, that we are now using these medicines as groundbreaking treatments, they say, "Oh, those are drugs. Those are addictive." and it's complicated, they could be, yeah, or they could just be completely recreational and have zero meaningful therapeutic potential. So it comes down to a lot of, the set and the setting and the intention and who you're with, and the why. But with ketamine particularly, um, yeah, could you talk a bit about that question that people say, is it safe? It's a drug, so how can it be safe for people that have an addiction, for example?
Absolutely no, and I've had to play. I can definitely speak to my experience over here, David. Um, I've had to keep a very close eye on my relationship with the medicine. And I think if I did not, if I were not, participating in a program, with clinicians, and trusting them with my care, I think my relationship with the medication would be very different. I don't think that I would actually have a healthy relationship if it was in any other setting for me personally. Having clinicians in your corner who are versed with the addictive properties, having clinicians in your corner, who are able to, catch you in your tracks if something is off, or ask or suggest that, you hit the pause button and perhaps, integrate for a certain period of time, post an experience, or just help you navigate your relationship with the medicine is, in my opinion, key for those who are struggling with, any sort of addiction, or who are going into this therapy with addiction. Without that, I do think that, we're talking about a very vulnerable group of people over here. And just to speak to even my personal experience, prior exploring psychedelics in this therapeutic container, I abused psychedelics in recreational settings, and I did have an addictive relationship with psychedelics and all substances, prior to being introduced, uh, with Dr. Hassan's help. So no, it's it's certainly been a challenging road, brother.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah, and there's such an exquisite sensitivity about what are these medicines going to do, and obviously not having any ability to predict or control it. But that question of, are these going to help me? Are these going to, not help me? Are they going to be, a bad trip? And there's no way of knowing these things, but we can obviously do some preparation beforehand and work with a therapist beforehand. Um,
Yeah, and just again, just to touch on that, like integration, for me has played such a it's that without the support of having a clinician in between my sessions, or having, clinicians in some scenarios have assist me through my sessions, without, someone who is experienced in this space. I think, again, I just can't emphasize any further on how challenging it would be for me to manage my relationship with ketamine, or with any substances for that matter, including coffee at times. So, yeah.
yeah, do you have a sense of accountability with those therapists, or a sense of community as well? How would you describe it, doing it in that really solid clinical setting?
Absolutely. I mean, the one thing about having check-ins, with clinicians is that, at least the clinicians that I've had the pleasure to work with, they've definitely been able to share with me and build a rapport with me, where they've, in some cases, even told me, where it's like, I think it's a pretty good time for you to simply hit the pause button right now on any maintenance doses, or just simply perhaps, consider X, Y, and Z, during this, let's say, challenging transition that you're currently, experiencing. Being very conscious during certain events that, are coming up, or just having that consistent support, and that communication, with your clinicians, is something that I would certainly, hope those exploring these treatments would keep front and center in their minds. Yeah, I think the consistency of seeing clinicians, post these experiences, I think that whole entire period, everybody has, their own perspective. You hear so many different, you read so many different papers, and you read so many, or you hear of so much, there's a lot of media, circulating around, integration these days on the internet. And, of course, there's no set formula. There's recommended protocols, but there's no one size fits all over here, right? With any treatment. And I think having sufficient support post the experience, especially even in a group setting, has helped me out a lot. Because in that group setting, you have access to community. I mean, we've seen it work in AA, we've seen it work in CA, we've seen it, work in, so many different other spaces. So, having access to a community, post as a part of your integration practice is something that I think has played an instrumental role in my healing and my growth.
Does New Life offer groups for clients? Like, can they have group sessions together, or is that on the horizons?
Preparation groups and integration groups are offered on a daily basis. So, we have cohorts. So you're not just basically participating in the program on your own. You're together with, individuals who are going through a similar journey in some regards or the other, with you. All of the groups are facilitated by a licensed mental health clinician. And, our integration programs director, Leah Benson, has been doing this work for about 20 years now. And it's just such a pleasure working with her. She actually saw our clients, began seeing our clients about a year and a half ago. And to be able to collaborate with her, on groups and preparation groups and integration groups, it's just been wonderful.
That's awesome. I didn't know that you offered that. That's, yeah, I think particularly for addiction, having that group setting, it could be accountability, but a lot of support as well. And having that supportive structure there, feeling understood, feeling like other people have similar experiences, it really helps a lot. Just to feel like, oh, I'm not a freak,
Exactly.
I'm gonna be okay. I am loved. I am supported. I just need to keep going. That's great.
And yeah, no, and along with just acknowledging community to be a part of our therapeutic ecosystem. Another part of our program is health coaching, and that's something that I've found a lot of support from our health coaches. In some ways they even serve people often ask me, like, what's a health coach? Like, what does that mean? In some ways it's just basically a life coach for any aspect of your health, whether if it's your relationship with sleep or your relationship with food. They're experienced, and they have a lot of value to add over there.
So, Kabir, there's a somewhat controversial question I want to throw at you, mate. So, have a listen to this, yeah? There's this concept that, medications, as we've known them, you take them every day for the rest of your life and they'll keep you well, kind of, particularly when it comes to addiction. Say with methadone or Suboxone, a lot of people stay on that for a long time, but especially antidepressants. It's hard to get off them. With ketamine, for addiction, I don't think, from what I've seen, that it's a lifelong medication. Whereas for treatment resistant depression, a lot of the time it might be needed to have those boosters, to have those kind of repeat sessions coming back, and to keep the therapy going. So from a business model, you know, there's that incentive to have your clientele, keep them coming back, and keep that revenue going, through the door. So it's a bit of a controversy, and some people in the psychedelic space they are saying that, well, hey, is this right that psychedelics are being used in a way that keep people coming back for years and years and years? So there's different answers here. So can we just talk about that? And I'm interested to hear, what are some of your thoughts around those questions?
Yeah, most certainly. One thing that I really do appreciate, about our just about our organization is that we do not view ourselves as a ketamine clinic. We view ourselves as a next gen mental health company that, of course, does use psychedelics to catalyze this change. Um, when it comes down to our approach around ketamine therapy, if a client is our first and foremost, it's always been the least effective dose for the maximum response. When coming into our program, our clients are well aware that this is not a long-term solution. Rather than this is rather a series of experiences that will help you expedite and understand the root and cause of your depression, of your severe anxiety, of your past traumas. But when it comes down to where we draw the line. Let's say a client is participating in our program for a few months, and if our clinicians find that this client is a non-responder and there's been no improvements in their PHQ-9, there's been no improvements in their GAD-7, and with if we find that this client is not a good fit for our program, they are what we like to say, honorably, discharged. And of course, we provide them with other tools and support and resources, point them in the right direction. And of course, there's a lot of follow up, even with those clients as well, who are not a good fit for our program. But our main focus over here, David, is basically to focus on the aftercare, focus on other tools that we can basically share with our clients that are focused on other, let's say, pillars of mental health, like sleep health. That's something that we are also working on and paying a lot of we're innovating on some pretty cool solutions over there for our clients. So the conversation definitely goes beyond ketamine, for us. And I feel like the clinical team that we have, the fact that they practice autonomously, from any other teams at New Life. I think that in itself creates a very safe space for our clients. Yeah,
I'm really interested that we're talking now about integrative, holistic wellness, not just about the medicine or even just psychotherapy. Those are essential parts of what we're saying. But if we ignore sleep and diet and relationships and community, and then we're not really looking at the whole person. So
absolutely. Yeah, no,
how do you manage to do that? Being a virtual company and working with clients virtually. How does that actually work?
when it comes to where credit is due is due, and I'm a big fan, I guess you can say, of my cousin-in-law, of our chief medical officer, that's Dr. Hassan. And he's always been a integration, for him has always been a key area of focus, within our treatment, within our treatment journey that we offer our clients. One thing that we recently started to go ahead and offer over here at New Life is health coaching. And health coaching goes beyond the conversation of just simply having, ketamine experiences and having integration sessions. Whereas in with the health coaching sessions, we start getting into the whole entire integrative approach, where we're basically, also uncovering, the root causes of these conditions that we do struggle with. Whether if it's depression, severe anxiety, you name it. Having the ability to offer our clients the opportunity to review their labs and basically, work with our functional medicine team, that has really been a key differentiator for us, and has really supported our clients. The response around health coaching, I think we're all overwhelmed and thrilled by it. So, yeah.
All right, Kabir, this was a pleasure. Before we wrap up, I wanted to ask you a question in your crystal ball. Uh, when you look ahead at the world of psychedelics, what excites you? About how you hope this fairly nascent but also ancient uh, tradition and practice of psychedelic medicine, what really excites you the most about how you hope it's going to unfold?
I think this is a really easy one over here, David. I think accessibility. Accessibility is a big one, for me, for us, for my colleagues and I. And it's just, that's something that we are very much, excited about, is basically being able to deliver these treatments to those, who need help. And, making sure that, we are navigating the space in the most conscious manner possible. and with the best intentions possible, continuously checking in and doing what is in the best interest for our clients. And I know so many of your viewers are in this space professionally, and it's getting busy, and it's something that I think we all need to acknowledge. And it's certainly, no, I'm excited about so much over here, David. I wouldn't even know where to actually start. So I guess it wasn't that easy, but through and through, accessibility, my friend, accessibility, and hopefully, we'll have more support, from different bodies as well, acknowledging psychedelics as a powerful tool for those who are struggling. Um, in the world that we live in today. So no, I think that's what I'm most excited about for sure.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Kabir. No, I appreciate that kind of respectability that psychedelics are gaining, hopefully on a global level, and it needs to happen by the authorities, so that there's not this stigma and having to hide about it. And these are amazing
Exactly.
experiences that help mental health and addiction, but also are just great for growth and happiness and love and connection and community building.
Beautiful. No, thank you. Thanks again for having me, David. Really appreciate you and all of the work you and your colleagues are doing.
Yeah, Kabir, been a real pleasure, and we'll see you soon. All the best.
Thank you, David.